And we begin this Sunday morning with the final stretch of election 2024, with just 16 days until Election Day on November 5th. And the momentum seeming to favor President Trump, as polls show voters are prioritizing the economy and immigration and trust President Trump more on these issues. Joining me now with more on the state of the race is independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator, it's an honor to have you this morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
You are an independent senator, but you caucus with the Democrats. Do you agree that Kamala Harris is losing some momentum? And what is her message to voters right now?
Well, I was out in Michigan and Wisconsin. We had rather huge crowds of young people, of trade unionists, so I don't believe that's the case. I think, look, the average American is angry. They're seeing the very richest people in this country becoming richer, while 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Over the last 50 years, wages have been stagnant. And what I think ordinary Americans are saying is, you know what? What about an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%? What about an economy in which we do not have three people on top owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society? What about an economy in which we join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a human right, and where we don't pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? Those are the issues, I think, Maria, that are galvanizing the American people. And I think if you look at those issues, people are going to turn out and vote for Kamala Harris.
And of course, these are the issues that are important to working people for sure. Senator, you are spot on. And I want to get your take on what's going on with the unions right now, because it seems that the unions have waning support for Kamala Harris and increasing support for Donald Trump. Now, Trump was in Detroit last week. He was promising an automotive revolution for U.S. automakers, for the unions, by ensuring that cars are made here in America and not cheaply in Mexico. He threatened using tariffs to make the point. Watch this, Senator. Got to get your reaction. So your thinking is the threat of a 200% tariff will stop them from taking the car. So you won't actually have to do it, so you're not going to actually push prices higher.
I never until now I said 200. I'm using that just as a figure.
But you say 200 a lot.
Oh, I'll say 100, 200, I'll say 500. I don't care. They're not going to bring cars into this country from Mexico and destroy what car companies we have left. But much more than that, I'm going to protect when a company comes to the United States. We're going to have a lot of companies come in because of all of the other things we can do.
So, Senator, President Trump feels that just the threat of tariffs is going to achieve his goal. What specific policy is Kamala Harris advocating to achieve that goal?
Well, let me just say, Maria, you're looking at a senator and former congressman who voted against all these disastrous trade agreements, NAFTA, PNTR with China, and so forth and so on. So the goal is to rebuild the manufacturing sector in America in general, the automobile industry. But I would point out to you, there is a reason why the United Automobile Workers, the guys who do the work in the automobile industry, are strongly supporting Kamala Harris. So what we need, I don't think you need a wall. I don't think you need to say that foreign, stuff can't come into America. That will just raise prices exponentially. But what you do need is a fair trade policy. You can't have corporations throwing American workers out on the street, going to Mexico, going to China. That has got to stop.
Well, what specific policy is Kamala Harris advocating to actually make that happen, to ensure that that auto sector does get the jobs that they require?
Well, in fact, she is proposing to make sure that we do not subsidize corporations who are moving out of this country. I was just at the John Deere plant in Iowa, and they're getting corporate welfare, and then they're thinking of moving to Mexico. That is not acceptable. She's also thinking about investing significantly to rebuild the automobile industry in this country.
Well, the investing obviously costs money. We just came off of this $7 trillion in spending, which obviously led to the inflation spike that we saw. Do you have concerns that this green agenda...
Maria, may I interrupt you?
Yes,
Can I interrupt you on that one, please?
Sir, yes.
All right, look. All right. Did we invest in helping working class families during the COVID pandemic? We did. I was the chairman of the Budget Committee. I worked on that. So the folks out there who got that $1,400 check when people were losing their jobs and small businesses were going on, yeah, we did that. We put money into hospitals so the people get the health care they need. If you want to ask my view, and many economists, The reason that we saw a spike in inflation, which is now going down, was not because of that, because of corporate greed, record-breaking profits on the part of food industry, other corporations charging us off-the-wall prices. I think that had a lot to do with inflation.
Well, I mean, how can you prove that? Because in the prior years, companies were making billions as well, right? But in the 4 years where we saw inflation spike to up 9.1%, it came on the heels of all of that spending, $7 trillion in spending. Did you go overboard with the spending after COVID?
Look, Maria, I will never forget, and I think your viewers will never forget, the kind of world we were living in during COVID. People were flocking to hospitals.
Absolutely.
Couldn't accommodate them. You know, small businesses were going under. People were afraid to go to work. People were dying going to work. We responded. And by the way, if you look at Joe Biden's popularity record, you know when he was most popular? It's after we passed the American Rescue Plan. We saved childcare. We saved hospitals. We saved colleges. So I don't apologize. But to your point, take a look at the kind of profits that are in the food industry, in the oil industry. They've been raising their prices exponentially and ripping off the American consumer, in my view.
Well, I know that the margins are very small in those industries, but I guess my point here is that do you have concerns that the climate change agenda, the Green New Deal, the green agenda, which is such a priority for you and so many Democrats, is really not aligned with where the American people are, who are more worried about making ends meet, inflation, immigration, economy?
Good. All right, fair question, Maria. But let me turn it around on you. And what we have got to ask ourselves, having seen what went on in Florida recently, right? What went on in North Carolina, the forest fires that we have seen, the droughts that we are seeing. In my own state of Vermont, we're seeing more weather disturbances than we've ever seen. Despite Donald Trump thinking that climate change is a hoax, it is not a hoax. The entire scientific community understands that if we do not, Maria, get a handle on climate change with the whole world, you know what? I worry very much about the planet that our kids and future generations are going to be living in.
Well,
now, we got to do this in a sensible way.
Yeah. No, I think we all do.
I agree.
I mean, Republicans worry
But
about
do you deny
the environment as well, by the way. But I guess, Senator,
But it's not a question of the environment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Critics say, Senator, that one issue with Kamala Harris is that they're just unclear as far as what her principles are, where she stands on all of these important issues. For example, she has long said that she would ban fracking, and then she said she wouldn't ban fracking. She said she was for Medicare for all, and then she says, no, I'm not for Medicare for all. Then she said her values haven't changed, and she wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden did. So I guess I ask you, do you believe Kamala Harris has changed? Will she agree to fracking? And if she does agree to fracking, is that a betrayal to you?
Well, I wouldn't use the word betrayal. People's points of view change. Look, as I've just indicated, I think we have to work with the entire world to save the planet for our kids and our grandchildren. And I think what's very dangerous, is Donald Trump thinking climate change is a hoax. No scientist agrees with him. In terms of Medicare for all, look, let me be very frank. I think our current system is broken, dysfunctional. Its goal is to make billions in profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies, while millions of people can't afford the health care they need. That is my view. That is not Kamala Harris's view. She supports the Affordable Care Act, wants to expand it. It's a different approach.
Senator, I want to ask you, I got to switch gears here. I want to ask you, we're going to talk with four-star General Jack Keane in a couple of minutes about Israel taking down another terrorist who really was the architect of the October 7th attack on Israel. You've been urging President Biden to not send weapons to Israel for this war. And to those people who are supportive of those weapons to Israel, they want answers. So I guess, how do you answer those people who say it was Israel that was attacked on October 7th, and they are retaliating for this? They're defending itself. And you're saying stop sending the weapons in the middle of Israel's fight for literally their survival.
Okay, Maria, let's be clear, all right? Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization that began this war with a horrific attack against Israel on October 7th. No one denies that. Sinwar, who has just been killed, is a war criminal. No one denies that. So the issue is not whether Israel has a right to defend itself. It does. But does it have a right to kill 42,000 Palestinians, two-thirds of whom are women, children, and the elderly? Does it have a right today to block humanitarian aid and starve children?
Well, I don't think they're
so.
blocking humanitarian aid. They're not blocking humanitarian aid.
Maria, the evidence, Maria, if I can say this, I mean, check what all of the organizations are saying. They are blocking humanitarian. Children by the thousands are dealing with malnutrition, are starving. So I think Israel has a right to defend itself, but it does not have a right to go to war against children and women in Gaza and destroy their entire society. That
Senator,
I do not agree with.
I've got to get your take on the process here before we go. The process of which Kamala Harris was put in place. She was selected, not elected. And I feel like you went through a similar situation back in 2015, 16. You were winning. You had garnered great support from so many people, including a lot of young people. But the machine didn't want you there. They got behind Hillary Clinton, and she was the candidate then, and you were out. It seems like a similar situation right now where the machine decided Joe Biden was out and they just selected Kamala Harris. Do you think voters will be turned off by that, this election?
Well, I think it was clearly an unusual process. There's no question about it. We've never seen anything like this. But, Maria, what I would also say when we talk about a process, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. What I see out there is people are disgusted with the amount of money coming into the political process. And it's on both sides. But you got 3 Republicans putting in over $200 million to Trump's campaign. That ain't good. Nor is it good that billionaires are supporting, Kamala Harris. What we need to do is end the Citizens United Supreme Court decision and get this kind of big money out of politics so we can be a democracy. You get a vote, I get a vote, not billionaires buying elections.
And it's the reason people get so upset, by the way, over George Soros and his support of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, it's both sides. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
But
Senator,
right now you have more All right, go ahead.
It's wonderful to have you this morning, Senator. Please, finish your thought.
No, that's all. It is both sides. I think you're seeing more concentration of billionaire money coming into Trump.
Senator, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We so appreciate it. I hope you'll come back soon.
Thank you very much.